What if I told you that the most profitable plants on the entire planet are not hidden in some Amazonian laboratory or locked behind a pharmaceutical patent, but are actually ancient, sacred botanicals described in scripture and forgotten by modern agriculture? Most people don't know this, but while industrial farmers are losing money growing subsidized corn and soy, there is a small group of growers who are quietly becoming millionaires by cultivating the exact plants that sustain the profits, healed the sick, and were traded as currency in the ancient world. I have ranked these from profitable to absolutely life-changing. And you are going to want to stick around because number 13 on this list was so rare and prized in biblical times that it was literally weighed against gold in the temple. And number 20, the final entry, is a plant that modern science has just proven can regenerate brain cells. If you want to learn how to build genuine wealth from the ground up while harvesting medicine that the Creator designed, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We uncover the forgotten wisdom that modern science is just now validating every single week. Here are 20 biblical and ancient plants ranked from profitable to absolutely life-changing. Number 20, stevia, the sweet leaf of the Guarani and the wise steward. Long before it became a trendy sugar substitute in little green packets, stevia was a sacred herb used by the Guarani people of South America for centuries. They called it cahier, the sweet herb, and they would pluck the leaves and chew them raw just to taste the sweetness that the earth provided. But here is where it connects to our ancient wisdom tradition. The concept of cultivating intensely sweet, health-promoting plants instead of relying on processed cane or artificial chemicals aligns perfectly with the stewardship principles found throughout Scripture. The body is a temple, and what we put into it matters. Modern science has caught up in a dramatic way. Clinical research has shown that stevia glycosides, the active compounds in the leaf, can actually help regulate blood pressure and blood sugar without adding a single calorie. We are talking about a plant that is up to 300 times sweeter than table sugar, yet it does not spike your insulin. The dried leaves sell for $20 to $40 per pound. Think of it as a savings account that grows in your garden. Here is the traditional use. You harvest the leaves just before the plant flowers when the sweetness is at its peak. You can tell because the leaves feel almost sticky to the touch. And if you lick your finger after handling them, the sweetness is almost shocking. Dry them in the shade, not the sun, to preserve the delicate compounds. Lay them on a screen in a dark, airy shed for about a week until they crumble at the slightest touch. Crush them into a green powder using your hands or a mortar and pestle, and use a pinch in your tea or coffee. Just a pinch, no more, because the sweetness is that concentrated. The modern world forgot this plant for decades, banning it in the United States until the 1990s because it threatened the artificial sweetener industry. The real question is why you would ever touch a chemical lab sweetener when a leaf from the earth does the job better. Think of it as the Creator's own sugar bowl, hidden in a green leaf that asks for nothing but a little shade and water. Number 19, calendula, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. If you have ever seen a field of calendula in full bloom, you understand why some call it Mary's gold. It is a radiant, luminous orange flower that looks like the sun itself fell into the soil and shattered into 1,000 petals. I remember the first time I walked through a patch of it at dawn, the dew still clinging to the resinous flower heads, and the smell was honeyed and slightly spicy, almost like warm beeswax. This was not just a pretty face in the medieval monastery gardens. It was the first aid kit. The dried flowers command $20 to $50 per pound in the herbal market today. Modern dermatological studies have identified that calendula contains high levels of faradiol and other triterpenoid esters that literally accelerate wound closure and reduce inflammation. It is one of the most scientifically validated skin healers in the world. Here is the traditional use. Harvest the flower heads at midday when the resin is most concentrated. You will feel the stickiness on your fingers. That is the medicine. Dry them whole on a rack in a warm room until the petals separate easily from the green base. Then infuse them into a carrier oil like olive oil. Pack a clean glass jar loosely with the dried flowers. Pour oil over them until they are completely submerged, seal it, and place it in a sunny windowsill for 6 weeks. Shake the jar gently every few days. That oil becomes the base for salves that heal eczema, diaper rash, and surgical incisions. You can melt beeswax into the strained oil to make a solid balm that will last for years. Think of it as the emergency room in your backyard that has been there all along, just waiting for you to remember it exists. While modern pharmacies sell you petroleum-based creams with unpronounceable ingredients, your ancestors were reaching for a handful of golden petals. Number 18. Lemon balm, the gladdening herb of King Solomon. There is a reason the great physicians of the Middle Ages, like Avicenna, praised lemon balm for making the heart merry and lifting the spirits. It was often planted near beehives because the fragrance calms the bees. A beautiful metaphor for what it does to a restless human mind. If you crush a leaf between your fingers, the scent is bright and lemony at first, but then it deepens into something almost floral and grounding. Dried lemon balm sells for $20 to $40 per pound. But the value is in the volatile oils. Modern clinical trials at universities in the UK and Australia have demonstrated that lemon balm extract significantly improves mood, cognitive performance, and calmness under stress. It inhibits the enzyme that breaks down GABA in the brain, essentially allowing your natural calming neurotransmitters to stay active longer. Here is the traditional use. Harvest the leaves before the plant flowers, in the cool of the morning when the essential oils are most concentrated. Dry them quickly in a dark, well-ventilated space. I hang mine in small bundles from the rafters of a shed, wrapped in a paper bag to keep the dust off and the light out. If you dry them too slowly or in the sun, the leaves turn black and lose their medicine. Use a tablespoon of the dried leaf in hot water as a tea after a long, anxious day. Let it steep covered for at least 15 minutes so the volatile oils do not escape with the steam. The taste is gentle, lemony, and somehow reassuring. Think of it as a maintenance crew for your nervous system that has been on call this whole time. The pharmaceutical industry would rather sell you a sedative. But Solomon's gardeners knew the secret was in the scent of the leaf. Number 17. Catnip, the overlooked mint that baffles modern science. Most people laugh when I mention catnip because they picture a feline rolling around in a state of euphoria. But this is a profoundly medicinal plant for humans, and it sells for $30 to $60 per pound for premium. High-grade dried leaf and flower. The biblical connection here is to the broader mint family, which was so valuable it was used to pay tithes in ancient Israel. Jesus himself rebuked the Pharisees for tithing mint, dill, and cumin while neglecting justice, proving that these herbs were literally legal tender. Catnip contains nepetalactone, a compound structurally similar to certain vilpatriates found in valerian root. It acts as a gentle, non-addictive sedative for humans, particularly for children with fevers or adults with digestive cramping. Here is the traditional use. Harvest the flowering tops when the blooms are fully open, usually in late summer. The essential oil content is highest then. You will notice the leaves have a soft, almost velvety texture and a smell that is minty, but with a musky, earthy undertone. Dry them gently by spreading them on a screen in a warm room. Brew a tea that tastes faintly of mint and earth. For a feverish child, a half teaspoon of the dried herb steeped in a cup of hot water, sweetened with a tiny bit of honey, will break a fever by inducing a gentle sweat without the harsh chemicals of modern antipyretics. A word of caution here. Catnip is powerful and more is not better. Too strong a tea can cause an upset stomach in some people, so start with a small amount and see how your body responds. Think of it as the pediatrician that grows outside your door, safe enough for a toddler, powerful enough to stop a spasm. Number 16. Fenugreek, the seed that built the ancient spice roots. Fenugreek seeds have been found in archaeological digs dating back to 4000 BC in Iraq, and they were a staple in Egyptian, Greek, and Roman medicine. The seeds look like small, angular amber pebbles, and when you hold a handful, they release a smell that is sweet and nutty, almost like maple syrup mixed with warm hay. The seeds sell for $15 to $30 per pound, but the real money is in the concentrated extracts and sprout markets. In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet was instructed to take wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt to make a survival bread. While fenugreek is not explicitly named in that verse, it was a standard addition to the bitter herbs of the region and was used to enhance the protein quality of flatbreads. Modern science has isolated a compound called 4-hydroxyisoleucine, which dramatically increases insulin sensitivity. Clinical studies on diabetic patients have shown a significant reduction in fasting blood glucose with just a few grams of powdered seed per day. Here is the traditional use. Soak the seeds overnight in a glass of water until they swell and form a gelatinous mucilage. By morning, the water will be thick and slightly slippery. That mucilage is pure soluble fiber that soothes the entire gastrointestinal tract and slows sugar absorption. Drink the water and eat the softened seeds on an empty stomach. You can also sprout the seeds in a jar, rinsing them twice a day until little white tails emerge, and then add those sprouts to salads for a burst of protein and enzymes. Think of it as a metabolic sponge that cleans up the dietary mistakes of the modern processed food era. The ancient traders who carried these amber seeds across the desert on camelback knew their value. We just forgot number 15, Tulsi, the holy basil of the temple. In the Hindu tradition, Tulsi is considered the earthly manifestation of the goddess Tulsi, a consort of Vishnu. But in our broader context of ancient sacred plants, this is the incomparable one, the queen of herbs. The leaves are a soft green, sometimes tinged with purple, and the aroma is a complex blend of clove, peppermint, and something almost incense-like. Dried Tulsi sells for $20 to $45 per pound. It is a sacred adaptogen. The biblical connection is to the concept of holy anointing and purification, while the specific species of basil used in the Mediterranean differs slightly. The reverence for aromatic cleansing herbs runs through Leviticus and the purification rites. Modern randomized controlled trials have shown that Tulsi lowers cortisol levels by up to 30%, protects organs against chemical stress, and acts as a powerful nervine. Here is the traditional use. Make a daily tea from the fresh or dried leaves, often blended with Gadu Kola and ashwagandha. Pick a handful of leaves in the morning, rinse them, and steep them in just boiled water for 10 minutes. The taste is warming and slightly numbing on the tongue. It is not just a beverage, it is a daily ritual of resilience. Drink it slowly, sitting down, not while scrolling through your phone. Think of it as a shield around your adrenal glands that the noise of the modern world cannot penetrate. While you are running on caffeine and deadlines, the ancient world was sipping on a leaf that physically blocked the damage of stress. Number 14, Gadu Kola, the brain cell regenerator of the ancient sages. This is a creeping swamp plant that looks utterly unremarkable. It has small, fan-shaped green leaves that hug the ground, often growing in damp, shady ditches. Yet it sells for $30 to $60 per pound. And it is one of the only plants on the planet scientifically shown to stimulate the synthesis of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. In the ancient Ayurvedic texts, it was called Brahmi, the herb of the supreme reality, and was used by meditators to unlock higher states of consciousness. While not native to the Levant, it was traded along the Silk Road and adopted into the pharmacopoeia of the Middle East. Modern neurology has isolated acetic and madecassoside, triterpenoid compounds that literally rebuild the myelin sheath around nerve cells and stimulate collagen synthesis for wound healing. Here is the traditional use. It is eaten fresh in salads, often shredded with coconut and lime. The leaves have a mild, slightly bitter taste that disappears when mixed with other greens. You can also dry the leaves and take a teaspoon of the powder in warm water each morning. Think of it as a renovation crew for your brain, repairing the damage done by years of inflammation and poor diet. The ancient yogis who could recite thousands of verses from memory were not just disciplined. They were eating a plant that physically increases the density of neuronal dendrites. Number 13, Sichuan pepper, the tingling currency of kings. We are now entering the realm of plants that were literally worth their weight in silver. Sichuan pepper, which sells for $40 to $80 per pound, is not actually a pepper. It is the dried husk of the prickly ash berry, and it creates a unique buzzing, numbing sensation on the tongue that the Chinese call ma. The husks are a dusty pinkish red, splitting open to reveal tiny black seeds that are discarded because only the husk holds the magic. The biblical connection is to the spices and nard, carried by the caravans of the Queen of Sheba when she visited King Solomon. The trade routes that brought frankincense and myrrh also carried these rare, mouth-numbing botanicals that were used to preserve food and treat toothaches in a time before dentistry. Modern food science has identified hydroxy-alpha-sanchul as the compound responsible for this sensation. It vibrates the nerve endings at a specific frequency, similar to a mechanical vibration of 50 Hz. It is a neurogastronomic experience. Here is the traditional use. The dried husks are toasted lightly in a dry pan until they become fragrant, then ground in a mortar and pestle and used to season meats and vegetables. But the medicinal use is even more valuable. It is a potent carminative that eliminates bloating and kills parasites. Chewing on a single husk will numb a toothache in seconds. Think of it as an electric toothbrush for your digestive tract, waking up nerves that have been dulled by a lifetime of bland processed food. Number 12, lovage, the Leviticus celery of the high priests. Lovage is a towering perennial herb that can grow 6 feet tall in a single season. Its hollow stalks shooting up like green spears, topped with umbels of yellow flowers that attract every beneficial insect for miles. The dried leaf sells for $15 to $30 per pound, but the root is even more valuable. This plant was ubiquitous in the monastery gardens of Europe and is almost certainly a descendant of the wild celery and parsley family mentioned in the bitter herbs of the Passover meal. It tastes intensely of celery and yeast, a rich, savory umami bomb that modern chefs are just rediscovering. Medicinally, it contains quercetin and limonene, powerful anti-inflammatory and kidney-supporting compounds. Here is the traditional use. The leaves and stems are used like celery in soups and stocks, but you need far less because the flavor is so concentrated. The roots are dug up in the fall of the second year, sliced, dried, and used as a diuretic to flush uric acid from the joints, making it a natural remedy for gout. Simmer a tablespoon of the dried root in water for 20 minutes and drink it as a tea. Think of it as a plumbing system for your kidneys, a deep clean that flushes out the crystallized waste that modern diets leave behind. The medieval monks who planted it at the gate of every monastery knew that a guest arriving with swollen joints would find relief in a bowl of lovage broth before they even said a prayer. Number 11, epazote, the bean whisper of the Aztecs and the Levant. Epazote is a pungent, almost gasoline-scented herb that sells for $12 to $25 per pound. Its leaves are jagged and deeply veined, and the smell is so strong that you can identify a patch of it from 20 feet away. A sharp medicinal, almost kerosene-like aroma that somehow becomes appetizing when you cook it. Its biblical connection lies in the concept of bitter herbs and digestive purification. The Middle Eastern variant, often called wormseed or Jerusalem oak, was used identically to the Mexican epazote. It contains ascaridole, a monoterpene peroxide that is lethal to intestinal parasites and worms. In a time before refrigeration and modern sanitation, this plant was a non-negotiable survival tool. Modern research confirms its anti-helminthic properties, and it is one of the most effective natural dewormers on the planet. Here is the traditional use. A single fresh leaf is added to a pot of beans while cooking. It does two things. It eliminates the musical fruit problem by breaking down the complex sugars that cause gas, and it purges any parasites that might be lurking in the gut. The leaf is removed before serving because it has done its job. Think of it as a security guard for your intestinal walls, escorting out the trespassers that drain your energy and steal your nutrients. We have sanitized our food to the point of sterility, yet we have forgotten the herbs that actually clean the internal terrain. Number 10, culantro, the genetic powerhouse that looks like a weed. Do not confuse this with cilantro. Culantro is a long, serrated leaf with a 10 times stronger flavor profile. It looks like a skinny, spiky lettuce leaf, and when you bruise it, the smell of fresh coriander fills the entire room. It sells for $15 to $30 per pound. It is the true coriander of the ancient world, mentioned in Exodus when describing the appearance of manna. The manna was like coriander seed, White, this plant was so embedded in the daily life of the Israelites that it was used as a visual descriptor for a miracle. Modern nutritional analysis shows that cilantro is exceptionally high in calcium, beta-carotene, and riboflavin. It is a nutritional powerhouse that thrives in the shade where other plants fail. Here is the traditional use. It is used as a fresh finishing herb in soups and stews, added at the last second to preserve the volatile oils. You cannot cook it long or the flavor vanishes. Chop it finely and scatter it over a finished dish like you would with parsley. Medicinally, it is a potent anti-inflammatory for arthritis. The leaves can be crushed and applied as a poultice to swollen joints. Think of it as the shadow dweller, the plant that prospers in the dark places and brings life to the nutrient deserts of the modern diet. While farmers struggle with full-sun crops, the wise grower is harvesting pounds of this in the forest understory. Number 9. Shiso, the purple armor of the samurai and the prophet. Shiso, or perilla, sells for $20 to $50 per pound. It is a stunning plant with deep purple, crinkled leaves that look like a velvet tapestry. When you run your fingers over the leaves, they feel like the softest suede. And the scent is a mix of cinnamon, anise, and something metallic and cool. In the ancient world, the red pigment was used to dye the robes of royalty and the cloths of the tabernacle. The biblical connection to purple dyes and aromatic herbs is well documented in the descriptions of the temple curtains and the robes of the high priest. Modern immunology has discovered that shiso contains rosmarinic acid and luteolin at levels far exceeding rosemary or celery. These compounds inhibit mast cell degranulation, essentially acting as a natural antihistamine and mast cell stabilizer. Here is the traditional use. The fresh leaves are wrapped around raw fish or fermented foods, not just for flavor, but to neutralize pathogens and prevent allergic reactions. You can also make a tea from the dried purple leaves, which turns a beautiful pale pink color and tastes refreshing and slightly minty. Think of it as a purple shield for your immune system, calming the hyperactive allergic responses that plague the modern population. The ancient priests who wore purple were not just making a fashion statement. They were wrapped in a symbol of immune protection. Number 8, purslane, the omega-3 succulent that King Solomon would have praised. Purslane is considered a weed by most suburban lawn owners, yet it sells for $15 to $30 per pound to high-end restaurants and health food stores. It grows flat against the ground, it's thick, reddish stems sprawling out like the tentacles of some green sea creature. And the leaves are plump, teardrop-shaped, and glossy. But here is the extraordinary fact. Purslane contains more omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid, than any other leafy green vegetable tested. It also contains high levels of melatonin and glutathione, the master antioxidant. The biblical connection is to the wild greens gathered by the poor and the prophets. In the book of Job, the outcasts are described as gathering mallow and the leaves of bushes. The mallow family and purslane are the succulent, life-giving weeds of the desert. Modern cardiology has confirmed that regular consumption of purslane significantly lowers LDL cholesterol and triglyceride levels. Here is the traditional use. It is eaten fresh, the thick, juicy leaves snapped off and tossed into a salad with olive oil and lemon. The mucilaginous texture is cooling and healing to the gut lining. You can also pickle the stems in brine, which preserves them and adds a salty, crunchy kick to any meal. Think of it as the heart surgeon growing between the cracks in your sidewalk. A plant so resilient it thrives in drought, while delivering the exact fats your cardiovascular system craves. Number 7. Yaupon holly, the only caffeinated plant native to North America and the forgotten holy drink. Yaupon holly sells for up to $30 per ounce, not per pound, per ounce. This is one of the most valuable specialty crops on the continent. It is a holly tree whose leaves contain caffeine and theobromine, the same stimulating compounds found in coffee and chocolate, but without the tannic bitterness. The leaves are small, oval, and evergreen, with a subtle serration along the edges. And when you roast them, the kitchen fills with a smell that is nutty, toasty, and almost like roasted grain. The biblical connection is profound. The concept of a watchman staying alert for prayer. the parable of the wise virgins keeping their lamps trimmed and burning. These require alertness. The ancient native tribes used yaupon in purification rituals, calling it the black drink, a vomitive that cleansed the body and sharpened the mind before battle or ceremony. Modern food science has rebranded it as a smooth, antioxidant-rich tea alternative. Here is the traditional use. The leaves are lightly roasted in a dry pan or a low oven until they turn from green to a golden brown and become brittle. Then they are crumbled and brewed just like coffee or tea, steeped in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes. It provides a clean, jitter-free focus. Think of it as the espresso of the American South, a sacred stimulant that was nearly eradicated by the coffee and tea lobbies. The creator put caffeine in a native holly bush for a reason, and we are only just now waking up to that reason. Number 6. Hyssop, the purification brush of the Exodus. Hyssop is one of the most biblically significant plants on this entire list, and it sells for $20 to $35 per pound. It is a shrubby, aromatic plant with narrow leaves and spikes of intensely blue or purple flowers that bees cannot resist. The whole plant is covered in fine hairs that give it a silvery, dusty appearance, and the smell is sharp, medicinal, and penetrating, somewhere between sage and camphor. This is the plant that Moses commanded the Israelites to use to paint the lamb's blood on the doorposts on the night of the Passover. David cried out, "Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean." It was the aspergillum, the holy sprinkler, the tool of covenant and cleansing. Modern pharmacology has identified that hyssop contains marubian and other diterpenes that are potent expectorants and antiviral agents. It literally breaks up mucus and fights respiratory infections. Here is the traditional use. A tea made from the flowering tops is used for bronchitis, asthma, and chest congestion. Steep a teaspoon of the dried herb in boiling water for 10 minutes, and drink it slowly, breathing in the steam as you do. Externally, it was used to cleanse lepers and those with skin diseases, not symbolically but physically. The essential oil is a powerful antiseptic. Think of it as the paintbrush of the blood covenant, a plant so sacred it was chosen by the Creator to mark the threshold between life and death. And modern science confirms it is an antiviral barrier for your lungs. Number 5. Duckweed. The manna of the 21st century. Duckweed is a tiny floating aquatic plant that looks like green sand on the surface of a pond. Each individual plant is no bigger than a pinhead, a single oval leaf with a tiny root dangling beneath it, and together they form a dense, velvety mat that covers the water like a living carpet. It sells for $30 to $60 per pound dried, and it doubles its biomass every 24 to 48 hours. This is the fastest growing plant on Earth. The biblical connection is to the concept of manna, a small, round, miraculous provision that appeared daily. Duckweed is approximately 42 to 45% protein by dry weight, exceeding soybeans, and contains all essential amino acids. It is a complete protein that grows on water without soil. Modern food technology companies are racing to scale duckweed as the solution to global malnutrition. Here is the traditional use. It is harvested with a fine net, rinsed thoroughly in clean water to remove any pond debris, and then dried on screens in the sun. Once dry, it is milled into a green protein powder that can be added to bread, smoothies, and soups. It has a mild, grassy flavor that disappears behind other ingredients. Think of it as the manna that God placed on still waters, a protein source that requires no land, no fertilizer, and no prayer for rain, just a pond and a net. While the world fights over arable farmland, the wise farmer is harvesting protein from the surface of a tank. Number 4. Ashwagandha, the strength of the stallion and the sleep of the righteous. Ashwagandha root sells for $25 to $60 per pound dried. It is a perennial, meaning you plant it once and harvest the roots year after year. The plant itself is unassuming, a shrubby bush with dull green leaves and small, lantern-like red berries encased in papery husks. The name literally means smell of a horse, implying it gives the consumer the vitality and strength of a stallion. The biblical connection is to the mandrakes mentioned in the book of Genesis, the fertility and vitality roots that Rachel begged for from Lee. While ashwagandha is not the exact mandrake of the Levant, it is the Ayurvedic equivalent in terms of its revered status as a restorative tonic. Modern clinical trials are staggering. Ashwagandha has been shown to reduce cortisol by up to 30%, increase muscle mass and strength in resistance training subjects, and improve sleep quality in those with insomnia. The active compounds are withanides, steroidal lactones that modulate the stress response system. Here is the traditional use. The root is dried, ground into a fine, brownish powder that smells earthy and slightly horse-like, and then mixed into warm milk with a little honey and a pinch of cardamom. This is the classic sleep tonic, taken an hour before bed. Think of it as the anchor for your racing mind, a route that physically slows the stress cascade and lets your body remember what deep rest feels like. The modern world is running on cortisol and exhaustion, but the ancient world knew that a single root could restore a man to his full strength. Number 3, moringa, the tree of life that Jesus would have known. Moringa sells for $25 to $50 per pound for the dried leaf powder, and the seeds sell for even more. It is called the drumstick tree, the miracle tree. And in the Bible's broader cultural context, it was the tree of life, described in Egyptian and Near Eastern texts. The leaves are tiny, oval leaflets that grow in feathery clusters, and when dried and powdered, they turn a brilliant, almost neon green that stains everything it touches. This tree grows in the arid regions of Israel and was almost certainly known to Jesus and the disciples. Modern nutritional science has declared moringa one of the most nutrient-dense plants ever discovered. It contains 7 times the vitamin C of oranges, 4 times the calcium of milk, 4 times the vitamin A of carrots, and 3 times the potassium of bananas. It is a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. Clinical studies have shown it lowers blood sugar, reduces inflammation, and protects the liver from damage. Here is the traditional use. The fresh leaves are stripped from the stems and cooked like spinach, or dried and powdered and added to soups, stews, and porridges. A single tablespoon of the powder stirred into a glass of water and drunk on an empty stomach provides a day's worth of micronutrients. Think of it as the multivitamin that God hung on a tree, a complete nutritional pharmacy in a handful of leaves. While the supplement industry sells you synthetic pills in plastic bottles, the moringa tree is dropping leaves that are more bioavailable and more complete than anything a factory can produce. Number 2, frankincense, the sacred resin that heals the brain. Frankincense sells for $30 to $80 per pound for the raw resin tiers, and the essential oil is worth its weight in gold. This is the gift of the Magi, the incense of the temple, the smoke that rose from the altar in the Holy of Holies. The resin oozes from the bark of the boswellia tree in milky white tears that harden into golden, crystalline droplets that look like fossilized honey. Modern neurology has isolated boswellic acids, which are potent anti-inflammatories that cross the blood-brain barrier. Clinical trials have shown that frankincense extract significantly reduces brain inflammation, improves cognitive function in patients with brain tumors, and even reduces the peritumoral edema, the swelling around brain cancer. This is not folklore. This is peer-reviewed, published science. Here is the traditional use. The resin tears are burned on charcoal as incense, and the smoke is inhaled deeply. The essential oil is diluted and applied to the temples, the back of the neck, and the soles of the feet. Internally, a single drop of the pure oil can be placed under the tongue, but only if it is a therapeutic grade, steam distilled oil from a trusted source. Think of it as the most expensive and effective brain medicine on the planet, given to a baby in a manger by men who understood its value better than we do today. The temple priests who stood in a cloud of frankincense smoke every day were not just performing a ritual. They were bathing their brains in anti-inflammatory compounds. Number 1, myrrh, the bitter tears that conquered death itself. Myrrh is the final entry, the number 1 most profitable and life-changing plant on this list. The raw resin sells for $50 to $100 per pound, and the essential oil is one of the most expensive substances on the market. Myrrh was present at the birth of Christ, carried by the wise men. It was present at his death, mixed with wine and offered to him on the cross. It was brought by Nicodemus to anoint his body in the tomb, 100 pounds of it, wrapped in linen with aloes. This is the plant of the threshold, the sacred balm for the most profound transitions of human existence. Modern science has discovered that myrrh contains furanoiodesmo-1, 3-diene and other sesquiterpenes that are potently cytotoxic to cancer cells. Clinical research has shown that myrrh extract induces apoptosis, programmed cell death in breast cancer, prostate cancer, and colon cancer cells while leaving healthy cells unharmed. It is also a powerful analgesic, activating the opioid receptors in the brain without the addictive side effects of synthetic opioids. Here is the traditional use. The resin tears are tinctured in high-proof alcohol for 6 to 8 weeks, shaken daily, and then a few drops of the tincture are taken in water for pain relief and immune support. The essential oil is diluted and applied to wounds, infections, and over areas of chronic pain. Think of it as the resurrection medicine, a substance that the Creator placed on this earth to walk with us through the darkest valleys and bring healing out of the shadow of death. The wise men did not bring random gifts. They brought the most valuable medicines known to the ancient world. And modern science is only now beginning to understand why.